Ever wish a podcast would explain how to get better faster from the standpoint of longevity, biohacking, and personalized functional medicine? Co-hosts Dr. Jason Bradley and James Chester, along with executive producer Rachel Bradley, bring you the Get Better Faster podcast. Their mission is radically simple: to revolutionize health by connecting people with the experts, technologies, and protocols that mainstream medicine ignores. Because people deserve to get better faster.
Hello, Get Better Faster Nation. I'm Dr. Jason Bradley, and along with my co-host, the one, the only James Chester, and our incredible executive producer, Rachel Bradley, we want to welcome you to another exciting episode of the Get Better Faster podcast. Before we dive in, we want to thank thyroidauthority.com for their support and underwriting of our podcast. If you're struggling with Hashis, hypothyroid, or other thyroid issues, despite following your doctor's advice, or if your doctor just isn't listening to you and getting you the real help that you need and deserve, head over to thyroidauthority.com, schedule a free call, and get ready for your life to change forever. Today, we're joined by a man who just walked out of the desert, so to speak. Timothy Ruppel is an entrepreneur and biohacking advocate who serves as business developer for OsteoStrong, the world's largest biohacking franchise, and a partner with Resolve Peptides. He speaks on stages worldwide, has inspired thousands to live healthier lives, and by many accounts has hacked the code for longevity. But here's what stopped us in our tracks. Timothy just completed a 40-day fast, 40 days of surrender, prayer, silence, and stillness. He stripped away every distraction to reconnect with what matters most, and he's here to tell us what he found on the other side. From mowing lawns at 12 years old to being on the forefront of the intersection of technology and human well-being, Timothy has built a life on one idea: nobody is coming to save you, so you'd better be willing to do the work. Without further ado, Timothy, my new friend, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, what an adventure. So, in this year, I'll go over what led me to this experience.
Yeah.
So basically, I had a friend pass away. I had a friend commit suicide. I was coming off of testosterone. I went through a breakup. I had a moment with God where I said, I'm obviously not driving this ship very well, so I'm going to take my hands off. And at that moment in time, the woman I was dating's mother said she'll be home in 5 days on Friday. So I said, God, I'm going to fast until I see her. So I did a little flex as a human being and said, I got this. On Thursday, she said, I'm not coming home. And so I went back to God and said, not that we're one for negotiating, but I'm going to commit to 40 days. So if you bring her home or 40 days. And I didn't understand what I was embarking upon, because during that distraction, darkness, scary moments, a lack of sleep, major amounts of energy, shifts in my body, my being started to take place. And I faced a lot of what we would consider, life's demons and the things that we don't think we have a problem with. And I got to have resets, and a beautiful thing came out of that. So the bottom line was, at the end of 40 days, I had reached out to almost 100 people and asked for forgiveness or apologized for something that had stood in my life. And so that is the beginning and the intro of the fast.
I know that Dr. Jason probably has like teed up 30 questions for you, but I like to open up our conversations with a little bit of a opener with an origin story. And I've gotten to know you over the past several years, and there's some things that Dr. Jason pulled up that I didn't know about you, but you started out as a young entrepreneur and, washing windows and mowing grass and buying your own ice cream. Because
the story's really cool.
Your mom wasn't going to give you handouts anymore.
Yeah, I asked my mom for like $1 to get a 65-cent ice cream cone at the end of the street, because I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, a little ice cream stand called Jan's. And she said, you can't have it, but you can earn it. And I'm like, whoa, say that again. I can earn money. And so I started push mowing lawns and trimming bushes and anything I could do. And I became obsessed with it. And that was the launch of me hustling. The entrepreneurial journey kind of set in at age 20, where I was like, this hustle, work harder, more stuff isn't working. I gotta dive to another level and learn leverage and systems and processes. And then for a decade, I avoided them and worked really hard again. And in my early 30s, I started to find myself systems and processes to scale things away from myself. But until then, it was the foundation of learning how to do a little bit more in that same time frame. So yeah.
But I've also noticed something about you is you've always put yourself in the right rooms.
Mm.
Maybe share with people that are curious about entrepreneurship, how you strategically keep on putting yourself in the right rooms and building relationships with people of influence.
Yeah. So find a way to provide value. In the last 2 years, I've been in 20 countries and 20 different states. I've been sitting with royal families in the Middle East and the GCC. I went to a health conference. My good friend Gary Brecka had invited me over to Romania, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Saudi Arabia. And so I started the journey. We were sitting in his living room one day and he goes, "You should come with me." And I was like, "Cool, I'm in." And he's like, "Really?" And he's like, "I have a lot of wealthy clients. Nobody shows up." I'm like, "Bro, I'll be there." And so landed in Saudi Arabia and went to this incredible event called Xenos Health. And at that event, I was finding myself sitting with locals that are a part of an established family office or a royalty or an oil family. And I was able to speak with people who control and move. At that point, it's energy. Like when you're talking tens or hundreds of billions of dollars, it's no longer money. It's not paper. It's literally moving energy in the world to accomplish something in a timeline that's impossible without it. And so the
Wow.
journey there, the journey there was just blessing, timing, and proximity. And so I was able to meet people there. And then as I went from Saudi Arabia, I went over to Dubai. I ran into some of the same people that expanded my network and brought me into rooms that are impossible to get into. And I actually sat with one of the family offices and some people that procured the 1.3 trillion that was promised to Trump last year. I sat with the same people. I have a photo with the same people. So for me, the most powerful thing I've ever learned from Tony Robbins is proximity is power. And so I've put that at the forefront of my networking, and my net worth, or my network's net worth, is in the tens of trillions of dollars because I found proximity. And it's just been by God's grace, because I went to a lunch, the guy wasn't able to make it. Another guy said, "Hey, I'm headed to this meeting. Can you drive me? It's 10 minutes around the corner." And I get there and the gentleman says, "Both of you come in." And that was the introduction. And then my good friend Ethan Kierkegaard invited me to another meeting the next day and sat me down with another person, and it was just the most phenomenal evolution of just proximity, etc. And I have to thank Ethan because 3-4 years ago I met him at the Super Bowl, and he said, "I host events in really powerful places." And I was like, "Cool, let me know when there's the next one." And we were able to sponsor that. OsteoStrong came in as a sponsor, and it gave me the microphone at Mar-a-Lago. So I'm a high school and college dropout with a GED, and I have the microphone at Mar-a-Lago in front of 40, 50 people. The next day, a couple hundred people at Trump International. And so the entire journey has just been proximity, conversation, and really listening to what people say, because people will tell you a story, but in that story, they will teach you what they're looking for and what they need. And once you have the ear for that, you'll be able to say, "Hey, on the side, I remember you saying this 3 months ago. I just found a solution. Is that valuable?" And now all of a sudden you have this level of rapport and this value to a room that you can't buy your way into.
Well, this is the real essence of get better faster. So
It is.
it's not only the doctors that give us guidance. Sometimes it's the position that we give ourselves permission for. And as I've gotten to know you over time, we actually met in one of those rooms.
We did.
And I feel like I'm on the same, kind of trajectory with you. Is you get yourself into the right rooms, you meet the right people, and the next thing you know, we have, the top 200 podcasts that you're being a guest on. So I
All
just
day.
think that when you're consistent with something for so long,
Yeah.
and you just believe, like, you have to believe more than anyone else's disbelief. And I think that when people hear this episode with you today, they're going to get better faster with their own personal belief conviction. And I think that that's something that I'm really blessed to be able to host a show like this with Dr. Jason, because um, we believed in something that when you talked about Trump and Mar-a-Lago, we believed that when we got RFK Jr. into office, we had 4 years of a sprint to produce a show that could become a top 200 podcast.
Yep.
And we had 4 years of truth. We had 4 years to go out there and to produce something that could get to the masses at a scale that we had this window of opportunity. And I said to him, like, before I thought it was all going to go down, we have to go live and we have to do this now.
I just want to give some credence to what James is saying right now. And Timothy, what you're saying too. I mean, I just spoke down in Florida at the ConnectMD annual conference, and they asked me, basically what's the trick? I mean, that's the big question. What's the trick to success? And I actually answered persistent consistency. And I thought that it's, one of the, and by the grace of God, of course. And also, like James said, he called me, I think, from the top of a mountain in November of 24. And I was at a conference, and I love James. We chat all the time. And sometimes when I'm busy, I don't take the calls. And I'm like, I'll call you back. But for whatever reason, the speaker that was at the conference, God bless whoever it was not that riveting. So I'm like, I'm going to step out for a minute. And I took this call, and James at the top of the mountain, and he's like, look at this beautiful thing. I'm up here in God's land and taking all this in. And he said, and it came to me, we have to do a podcast, and it's Get Better Faster. And I knew instantly what it was about. And he gave me the pitch, and here we are. We launched last December. And like he was saying, we're 6 months in, and I don't even know if we're just 6 months in or almost 6 months in. And we hit that top 200 on Apple. And it's like I said, by the grace of God, and I'm so thankful for it. Timothy, the other thing that I'm picking up on, and we just met, I wish that I've known you longer, but I see a long future for us as well.
Absolutely.
What I'm hearing from you, and I'm going to let you say it in your words, that ultimately you have to provide value. I mean, that's really the key to success, right? And every entrepreneur that I know is provide value. What can you give back to the world? And find a purpose greater than yourself, and I'd love to hear you speak on that for a second. Then I want to jump into how the heck did you fast for 40 days? I want to get into that, but I'd love to hear about purpose and value. And
yeah, I'll start with purpose. Purpose is a constant evolution for me. So where I'm at, what I'm doing, how I'm showing up, where I plug in, etc. So my purpose is to serve the people that I'm around. So I do the best I can to serve everybody. And the main thing that I've learned coming out of the fast is fill myself up, serve better. That is something that has been very valuable evolution for me, because I have been very empty over the last few years, just grinding my face off into things. And in the pause and in the stillness of the fast, I was able to get such clarity. Like one of my companies that means the world to me. So I'm a partner of a couple drug rehabs. And the reason why that opportunity came up was my older brother has struggled with addiction for my entire life. And so we don't know how he is or where he is most of the time. And he's been in and out of trouble. And opportunity came about. And we recently went through an expansion, and we're looking for funding. Normally, I'm going to dial 100 people, say, do you want to throw 250, 500 grand in? We're going to raise a couple $1 million. And I sat in peace and stillness, and I said, God, give me one name. And I was so uncomfortable, because for 3 days, I get text messages from wealthy, influential individuals saying like, hey, what are you up to? What do you got going on, etc. And I just say, thank you for reaching out. And I really wouldn't say anything. And my ex-wife calls me and goes, hey, one of the guys that works with me, I think could be really valuable for your project. You should talk to him. And like, he's becoming a great friend. He's wildly intelligent. He has a degree, and I might butcher this a little bit, but it's a nurse practitioner of like psychiatric medicine of some sort.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that was a thing. And he, like, when we shared everything about the clinics, he just nodded. He understood everything. And I'm like, wow, this is exactly who we're looking for. So in the stillness, the purpose is developed. In the laser focus, the purpose is developed. And so my purpose has been in a constant evolution. And for me, it's still service. I mean, service leadership is just, how do I fill up the people around me? When I met James, there was something vibrationally that clicked. And I was like, James, whatever I can do to serve your podcast. And I handed him a handful of beautiful relationships that year that became podcasts for him, from Kyle Zagrodzky, founder and CEO of OsteoStrong, to my friend Stephen Klein, to I think we got one of the, what was the other one? You said you interviewed him, but anyways, lots of introductions there. And it's just like, it was a mission of mine to be like, let me introduce you. And that's that purpose. The purpose shows up through the actions, and people are like, well, how do you know what to do? I'm like, I do a lot, and then things become clear. And then you said the purpose, what was the other side of it?
Oh man, I was just talking about providing value,
Awesome.
I think you got it. That was great.
Well, Well,
Go.
there's a saying that if you give everybody everything they've ever wanted, you'll never have to ask for anything.
It's true.
And I think that that's really what we're doing with this show, and what you do with your life, Tim, is you gave to me out of your own abundance, expecting nothing in return. And that's something really not typical in today's um relationship economy. Everybody's looking for an upper hand and a hand back. And I think that you came into my world and you're like, hey, I just want to introduce you to people and having them on your show, because I know that you've been working hard to build, your show and do your podcast world and everything that I was up to. Because I believe that, some people say podcasts go back to 2004, but even then, they were just creating like an RSS feed, and
Yeah.
I think that like early adopters of podcasts were like a decade old now, like really, really, like people will always want to like have the badge of honor, like, yeah, I was podcasting in 2007 or whatever.
Yeah.
But anybody that's been doing anything for a decade, they love what they do, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. So
It's true.
it's really cool to network and have you actually help support from the inside out, putting me in positions with great people. So I just want to say thank you for that.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. I just want to also just say, I think that degree is a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, or a PMHNP.
Thank you.
It's a lot of
Yes.
letters. It's a whole
It
lot
is.
of letters, right? But yeah, some of the best. And I mean, and again, this is my opinion, but we know a lot of different providers, Dr. Rachel and I, and James, of course. And some of the best psychiatric and psychological providers that I know are nurse practitioners. They just think differently. I mean, the whole nursing world starts out with a patient-centered approach as opposed to a disease-centered approach, and it's just a different animal than general medicine. So if anyone's out there struggling, I mean, addiction is real. I mean, it's very real. Psychiatric issues are very, very real. Let's not stigmatize it. Get the help that you need, and in my opinion, find a I got to look at the letters again, psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, PMHNP. And speaking of that, Timothy, and I'll just speak for myself, I've struggled with addiction. I've been pretty outward about this. Somehow I was one of the most functional alcoholics, I think, that's ever walked the planet. And I don't use that as a badge of honor. But somehow I was still successful. But man, was I drinking a whole lot. And I mean a whole heck of a lot. I won't go into the details, but I was in the pit, so to speak. And I've been there with friends, and it's interesting as you start to strip away, the addictions, and start to, face, I don't know, the pain. This has been my experience. A lot of people that are in the pit with you and drinking with you and, smoking whatever and doing whatever, it's like they were your best friends. And then all of a sudden they're just gone. And it's a very lonely world. All of a sudden it's a very lonely world. Rachel and I have not been drinking now for, I don't know. And we were winding down, but it's been like 4 years now, I think. I'd have to look. I think it was 2022. And our friend circle and our social circle and our I don't know how to say that, but it's really shrank because socialization is so built, at least in America, it's so built on drinking or smoking a J or whatever it happens to be, and just chilling that way. And I just know that the pain that I went through was really rough, and I'm so glad to be on the other side. Speaking on the other side, thank you, by the way, for your work. Speaking of the other side, I got to talk about this 40-day fast. I'm fascinated with it. This was the pitch that James gave me last week. We rushed you onto the show. Usually we have months and months and months of a lead time. As an example for our listeners, here we are in June recording the live show. If somebody wanted to be on our show right now, our next opening and only opening later this year is either in November or December, and then we're looking at 2027. So we have a long list of folks that want to be on our show. But when James pitched, this guy's been fasting for 40 days. I was like, we got to get him on the show. We got to get Timothy on the show. Rachel and I want to give her credit too. We committed to carnivore, like pure carnivore.
Yes.
At the beginning of 2025 in January, February. And we were religious about it for at least 6 months. And honestly, I've never felt healthier. I felt great. My inflammation was gone. My brain was functioning. I had more energy. And then, the way things go, at least with my life, we start to add in low glycemic load vegetables, and I'm, I don't want to diss that, but that kind of infiltrates a little bit. And then, it's like, well, where we are right now, we're still following, I would say, protein forward with low glycemic load vegetables, but we keep talking back and forth with each other, Dr. Rachel and I, about going back to full carnivore, because she says the same thing. She's never felt better. I've never felt better. And I'm not sure why we're not pulling the trigger. Part of it is, when I make a commitment like that, I want to have the integrity to live through the commitment.
Yes.
So it's like, it's a mental game. You started with, I'll do this for 5 days. And then you said, I think something like, okay, God, bring her back, or 40 days. I got to understand this, because 40 days of just water. Am I understanding this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Salt, lemon, lime.
Salt, lemon, lime, and water. I got it.
Yeah.
Tell me about the journey. And then I'm going to pick your brain on willpower and fortitude and metal and all of it. I gotta hear the whole thing.
So the journey started before the fast. I had not cried in about 20 years. And I was in a place of pain and suffering that I didn't understand how to process, because I had so many things happening. I had a very close person in my life not honor their word on a business deal because they found pressure from other places, and that was a large sum of money that was promised. And I had counted on it, and that put pressure on myself and my relationship that I had. And then I was coming off of testosterone because the woman I was dating and I were discussing having children. So I wanted to get my hormones back to a natural balance. I had a friend pass away. I had a friend commit suicide 3 days apart. I had talked to him on Wednesday. He took his life on Friday, so 48 hours later. And I was alone in this period because I'd stepped back to be in a moment of time and space. And I went on a men's retreat. And during the men's retreat, I aligned myself saying, I'm going to go get this girl. I'm going to line my life up. I'm going to do these things. I'm going to step into this version of myself. And on the other side of that was a no from her and a no from several other things, and a 6-figure setback to my world. And so I was like, okay, I'm doing a pretty shitty job driving this ship, even though I felt like I was doing a pretty good job. And there's this cartoon, I'll send it to you guys. We can throw it in as a little thing on the side. It's like a little Tykes car, and you're sitting there driving it, and you're sitting on God's knee, and he's laughing at you because you think you're in charge, you think you're going somewhere, but you're really not. And so that was the last solid 6 months of my life. I put a lot of time, energy, and effort into some business projects and not seeing anything come to fruition. And a lot of frustration and failures came out of that amplified. And so in that space, I was less present and I wasn't available. So I'm in New York City about 2 months ago, and I started trying to cry because I was just in such anguish and I couldn't. I didn't know if I felt like I'd gone into like a seizure. I was actually in the fetal position going like this, and I was like grunting or moaning, but I could not physically release a tear. And I did that for almost 4 hours. I passed out. I did not fall asleep. And the next day when I woke up, I had a hematoma, like I went to the boxing gym and had my ribs beaten on the side, and I was scared. And so that night I walked for 7 hours because I was afraid to go to bed. Finally at 3:30 in the morning, I was like, my feet hurt, my body hurt, I'm gonna sleep. And that was the first night that I cried. And so having that emotional, mental, physical experience and release, I was like, something has to change, and it has to be me. And I had this remembrance of a story where a father says to his son, I'll play ball with you in a little bit. And the son comes out and goes, Dad, can we play? And he's like, no. And they're watching some sports game. And the dad goes, clean your room. And he comes back out like 10 minutes later. He's like, my room's clean. Let's go play baseball or whatever it was. Let's go play ball, Dad. The dad's frustrated. He goes, the game's on. It's, whatever. It's an exciting moment for people that watch sports. He's in it. And he says, here. And he pulls out a page on a magazine and he tears up a bunch of little pieces and he goes, put the world together. And his son comes back like 3 minutes later and shows him the world's together. And the dad pauses the TV and looks at his son, goes, how'd you do that? And he said, Dad, on the other side of the world was a man. And when I put the man together, the world fell into place. And I sat there with that repeating in my head for several days. And that was the first moments where tears entered my eyes and flooded down my face. And I was like, I need to anchor this. And so I've done some fasting in the past. And at that moment in time, I was like, God, I'm going to fast till she comes home. And on Monday, I'd spoken to my ex-girlfriend's mother, and she had said to me, she'll be home on Friday. So I was like, cool, I'm going to fast for 5 days. Thursday, she said, I am not returning home. And I was like, okay, God, I'm going to come to the negotiating table. Not that we like to negotiate with God, because he's kind of like, law, black and white, spirit of the law, letter of the law. And I'm like, okay, I entered into a verbal commitment and a covenant. And I'd like to put this out there and go to 40 days. I'm going to do a Jesus fast. And I had no idea what I committed to, embarked upon, because in my ego, she'll be home in a few days, life will be fine. It's not how it rolled. So that is the entry as to what put me into the fast.
Wow. So, I mean, that's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing all that. I can't remember, the number, but they say, humans can only handle so many things before we break. And I think that number is like 2 things or 3 things, like these major life events. And I mean, you had business commitments falling apart, changes in medication. A friend died, another friend committed suicide. Um, you're having relationship strains, I think that you mentioned. It's like all of these things, leading you up to this. And any one of those, let alone 2 of those, let alone 5 of those, I think would have broken most people. And I really appreciate that. And it's something that I've had to learn over my life, but I really appreciate that you said, you know what, I'm not in control. I'm going to surrender to God. I'm going to turn to God and just follow that lead. And I think that so many of us in the entrepreneurial world, it depends on, I guess, where we are, but so many people like forget about the entrepreneurial world. So many people think that they're in control of their lives. And a lot of times when we find those dark spaces, we realize that there's, like you said, someone else driving the car, someone else driving the bus. And we think we're in control, but when we surrender to that, it's just a different thing altogether. And I really love, I think you said something like the little boy, when I put the man together or put the man in place or whatever that was, the world came together. I love that idea because for myself, I mean, I was one of those armchair Christians, I guess you'd say, where like, I mean, I'd go to church occasionally, I'd been baptized and I sort of knew a little bit of the Bible, but not a whole lot, but, and I'd listen to sermons and, it was just one of those things. But when I put into place, like literally trying to commit to what would Jesus do? Like, what does that mean in this situation? What is the Christ consciousness? What is the choice of Jesus? And I think the answer is, love the Lord your God above all else and love your neighbor as yourself, right? I mean, which means love yourself. Like you said, you got to pour into yourself. You got to be a full cup to pour into others. And if you get those 2 commandments correct, everything else falls into place, right? I mean, that is the law, so to speak. All of that said, thank you for sharing. So you get 5 days in, you're praying, you say, I'm in this until she gets home, or 40 days. You don't realize that's going to be 40 days and the clock's ticking. Because I've done 1-day fast, 2-day fast, I've done 3-day fast. I've attempted a 5-day fast. I failed horribly at it. You had to have had doubt at some point or some struggles. Like, when was the first like inkling in your solar plexus, in your gut, that said, this is hard, like this is a hard thing? And then when did that happen and what got you through that?
So the first 7 days were brutal because I committed to something I didn't want to do. I was also the first 7 days finishing a 14-day pretty aggressive parasite cleanse. So now I have nothing coming in my body, things dying in my body. And what you said a moment ago was each one of these can break a person past 2. When I shared, and I gave you guys the tip of the iceberg, but I had about 20 things that took place in the last 90 days that 1 or 2 of them will cripple a human being. And the body, our brain, and the way that we process doesn't know the difference between a broken heart and a broken bone. It can create an immense pain. When I put those things into Claude and I started to ask about it, it basically said, stop your life, don't do anything, go have lunch, because your nervous system is going to break. And I realized at that point how many times I had broken down to the foundation of who I was. Like, I'm talking mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, my breath, my pain, my body, pain in my body. And that's another thing. The body keeps score. When I called one of the individuals, am I good? When I called one of the individuals, I said to him, I'd like to apologize to you. I hadn't talked to him in 3 years. And as grown men, we cried. My body shifted. And I was like, whoa, this is interesting. And that was around day 10. And for the next 32 days, because I went 42 days. I went 30 days on a strict fast, and then I went 2 days in bone broth. And on Father's Day was the 43rd day, and I had a meal, which I'll share with in a little bit. So the experience and the evolution of where am I doing it, how am I doing it? I had so much pain that I had no choice but to follow through with my commitment. And I encourage everybody to face these demons, because the suicide and talking to a friend 48 hours prior was like a wild experience, because I didn't have space to process that. So it just hurt, it hit, and it was gross, and I didn't know what to do with it. And then on the other side of that, my friend passing away, I was like, I haven't talked to this person in a while. And I use these words often, miss them while they're here. So like, if I have that touch on my heart, like James and I will call each other at the randomest times. Boom, what's up? How are you? I'm good. I'm busy as crap. We got to go. Cool. Just wanted to say hi. Love you, brother. Bye. Click. And it's moments like that where like I'm missing him while he's here, because we don't know. Life is finite, and in the brevity of it, we get blessed with time and space. And yeah, so I will remember specifically for the rest of my life, day 22. I was walking in the water in what is the beautiful lake outside of Reno, Nevada?
Tahoe.
Tahoe.
Yes, I was in Tahoe. I had my feet in the water. I have a video on my Facebook with my feet down, and I'm walking. And I started doing Ho'oponopono. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I started bawling my eyes out, because it was the first time I'd addressed myself versus saying it outward. I was saying it inward. And I realized that for the first time in many years, I was actually falling in love with myself. I was proud of myself. I had done 22 days of a fast, which is something that I was like, that's ridiculous. What is that person doing? Then all of a sudden it was me. And so the fall in love with myself piece is brand new to me. Like, I love myself dearly. I'm proud of myself. I have accountability. I was facing everything that a human being can face. I had just hiked for 2 hours with no food, 22 days. I had my feet in ice cold water in Lake Tahoe, and I didn't know what I was going to embark upon. It's been the greatest gift. And the cost of it, I mean, the cost of it was 6 months ago, I was telling my children that the woman I was dating and I are going to get married and have kids, and they're going to be siblings. And 6 months later, I find myself single and broken and falling and failing and trying to hold my own shit together, when it really wasn't mine to hold together. It was mine to let go of and put back on the altar and say, hey, let me clean my slate. Let me do it. And you said something beautiful, the Christ consciousness. For me, it's renewing the mind. So it's every day we get up and we write a whole bunch of stuff on a whiteboard. And when we go to bed, we close it. When we wake up, it's a beautiful, clean slate. Well, if we're dragging shit from yesterday into that clean slate, that's a choice. And so when it came to the funding and it came to different things and the precision and the accuracy and the conversations, the clarity came from less is more. It came from the ability to let go and be in a place. And so that's been some of the lessons. And like I said, day 22 was the moment when I realized I'm falling in love with myself, and I honor myself and I respect myself. And I hadn't experienced that in maybe 20 years.
It's an amazing, thank you for sharing all of that. And I think that it's so hard, because when I was, teaching or educating, I guess, my own clients over the last, 2.5 decades, one of the things that I find, and I work primarily with women, right? Dr. Rachel and I work primarily with women, I don't know, 30 to 60 years old, roughly. And it's interesting. I think as men, we face our own demons, but I've noticed that a lot of women, especially as they, have families and this and that and kind of integrate in that way, they start to put everyone and everything else first. I know we do too. But women have this, Rachel even said it the other day. And I mean, I hope she doesn't feel this way, but she's like, there's so many demands on women. Like, you have to be, sexy, but pious. You have to be smart, but not too smart, not too outspoken. You have to, put the family first, but take care of yourself. You have to, I think there's all these like dualities that I think women face. And one of the main threads that I find from my clients that I've worked with, thousands of clients over the 2.5 decades, are basically that they have been habituated, I think is a good way to say it, to put everyone and everything else first. I mean, they got to take care of the kids, they got to take care of their husbands, they got to take care of the bills, they got to go to work, they got to clean the house, they got to do all this stuff. And then their intention is to, take care of themselves, but there's not, there's only so many daylight hours, right? So, I mean, I love your perspective, because same thing that I was telling people, you have to fill up your cup so that you can be a better mom, a better wife, a better worker, a better friend, a better human. When you do that, you're going to find that your relationships blossom. Even if you think they're wonderful now, they're going to blossom. And I've had so many people tell me that's selfish. That's a selfish attitude. And putting myself first, I just can't do that. And I'm like, yeah, you can, trust me. So I love you sharing that. I know, James, I'm going to pass it over to you here in a second, my friend. So thank you for sharing that. I think it's a really key nugget for our listeners. Go back and listen to what Timothy just shared with us, because when you fill up your own cup, you're going to be literally a better human being all across the board. The other thing I wanted to share real fast is I completely relate about less is more. Besides the fact that Rachel and I are endlessly, going through what we have and paring down and donating and, all the stuff that we can do. When I was doing the carnivore diet, as I said, from in the early 2025, the first half, a little bit plus of 2025, it really spilled over into other aspects of my life. And I started working on a project that I called Carnivore Consciousness, not to bring up consciousness again, but what started out as a diet really very quickly became a lifestyle. And I mean, why do I don't need all this excessive food. I mean, I have decision fatigue around food. With carnivore, it became very simple. I'm sure with fasting, it's even more simple, because it's just water, salt, and lemon. We were meat, salt, and water as well, and a little lemon too. But it started to get into, why do I have the clothes that I have? Why do I have all the books that I have? Why do I mean, like, all of this stuff. And we just started going through every room, every closet, every storage bit, like everything that we had to pare down. And right now, a lot of it's been donated or moved into my garage. James was just here, and my garage is a wreck right now. That's our next project, is to go through that and just move it all out. But I think it's interesting with the fasting, with the carnivore, the way that these decisions end up impacting lots of other areas of our lives. So I appreciate that you brought that up. Simplicity. James, I'll pass it over to you, my friend.
Couple statements I like to make, and then I'm going into curiosity with Timothy. But there's an old saying, and this is going back to the women who you take care of, and a couple of the frameworks that you guys have both presented is there's an old saying that if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And I think that people have to go back to conventional wisdom with taking care of yourself first. As people know me, they know that I go out and I stand on the sidewalk and I schedule people for chiropractic. And I tell people all the time that you either have to pay for your health now, or you'll pay for sickness later. And I think that goes full circle for our spiritual health. I think it goes full circle for our relationship health. I think it goes full circle for our careers. Like, if you don't pay for it now, you'll pay for the sickness of it later. And sometimes paying it is the lifestyle choices that you make. And sometimes that's the fast. Sometimes that's the dedication to taking care of what you allow yourself to have in your life. Like, I haven't had television in over 15 years. And I just realized that anytime I had that in my life, I felt polluted. Like, I was just at a hotel in Chicago and they had the news on, and I was just there for breakfast, and just 20 minutes of having TV in my life for the time that I was having breakfast has a half-life inside of me right now that it still lives inside of me. Those messages that were on the TV, I have to figure out how to get that out of my life. So what you're saying is, what we don't take control of controls us.
Absolutely.
And what we don't understand, the environment that we put ourselves into, becomes us. And Dr. Jason was saying how him and Dr. Rachel have been, without alcohol for 4 years. I decided that 8 years ago. And, this Thanksgiving will be 8 years of sobriety for me,
That's
which,
awesome.
you know,
Congratulations.
I that's like a fast, like if you want to talk about fasting, fast from the party life, fast from the late nights, fast from the camaraderie and the that type of a lifestyle, fast from that, and then see who you become. That's the big message for me is fast from what you really don't know why you do it, like you were talking about, Tim. Why or Timothy? Why are you doing the things that you're doing, and what do you need to remove to become a better version of yourself?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a lifetime of fasting from a substance. Like you're saying, your brother struggles with alcohol or addiction. There's many people out there that can't tell themselves no. And I think that that's a really big statement for all of us as men on the show today is talking about telling yourself no to the convenience of what everybody else says yes to, whether that's fasting, whether that's addiction or alcohol or whatever it might be. When you tell yourself no to something that's convenient to everyone else, like television, you start to realize that people, you have conversations with people. I had this go on. So people had asked me how I became who I am. And I said, well, I had to tell myself, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. So when I introduced myself to people, I'd give them like a list of 10 things that I don't do. And and then people start to understand who I am and who they got like in their space. And then I can start to understand who they are because now they say, okay, well, this guy doesn't do anything. Like, what does he enjoy doing? So then people ask me what my hobbies are. And I'm like, well, I like to travel and I go hiking and I'm a podcaster. Like, if that isn't a fucking hobby, I don't know what is. Like, 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 talking to people is my hobby. Like people associate hobbies with like you gotta like, you know, go kayaking or I don't know what people think hobbies are anymore. You got to play like a sport or be on a team or something. But I think it's important for people to understand their hobbies can be the things that they enjoy, and their hobbies can
Absolutely.
also be the things that they don't want to do anymore, and they remove that from their life. So, like the whole fasting world that we're talking about with you today, like we have to understand that like what we do on a day-to-day basis, and I'm going somewhere with this, what we do on a day-to-day basis becomes who we want to be, and who we want to be should be something that we're proud of. Like you're saying, you're proud of who you are now, and you gave yourself permission to be somebody that could release and cry. And what the other part of the story is I think that people have to understand that you have to push yourself to exhaustion before you find out what you won't tolerate anymore. And I love the idea that you said you went and walked for like 7 hours because that was the only thing that like you felt capable of doing. And it was the only thing that made sense to you at the moment. And I think people have to understand that like if everything is not going the way you want to, just go push yourself to the point of exhaustion and go take a long sleep and like wake up and feel like you've actually like you're refreshed and you're renewed. Like that's another thing that people don't give themselves permission to do is push themselves to exhaustion with a healthy idea and then come back stronger. But I want to get into spiritual health with you before we finish up today. So I'll table that for now. But on a day-to-day basis, I want to hear about what your stack is. What do you do to stay healthy? What do
Mhm.
you tell your what do you tell yourself yes to consistently daily? Things that you do and your like value to yourself.
Yeah. So I make sure that I sleep with grounding sheets. So in all my luggages, I'll have
Yes.
pillowcases or a strip, something simple to get me that Earth's magnetism and that toroidal field connection where I have grounding and Schumann frequency. It's something that I think I was actually texting Gary Brecka maybe 2 years ago, and he said something. I was like, I'm doing this, this, and this. What do you think? And he's like, and grounding. I was like, whatever. And I had the grounding book sitting by me, so I thumbed through the 130 pages of a simple grounding book. I don't remember the author, and I was like, oh, it makes sense. And so I spent $110 on Amazon, 10% silver, 100% cotton sheets. put them on. And the next day when I woke up, I was in the exact position where I had laid down. And normally we toss and turn, but I was still. And I was like, wow, this is simple and foundational and back to nature. And that's the thing is most biohacks are just kind of saying, hey, dummy, you're in Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, chemical filled water, chemical filled everything, chemicals on your clothing made of chemicals that are petrol and plastic. And it's reducing those and eliminating them. So grounding sheets, red light, breath work, foundational for me. Salt in the morning, salt at night. I have I believe it's onyx salt out of South Africa. It's a beautiful salt. It has a ceramic grinder, so you're not putting plastic into your food. And then Baja Gold salt is very. It's usually within 3 to 5 feet of me, anywhere that I am. And so those are some foundational pieces. The breath work for me is pretty simple because I'm a partner of a breath work app, and log into that, click on, go through it. I actually recorded some of the breath work so that I can play it anywhere in the world. Back in, gosh, it would be September last year. I just downloaded a 6-minute one and I played it hundreds of times because it brings me back home. Things that I do daily. Supplement routine for me is very key. I keep it really simple, and I do 100 push-ups off the counter or to the floor or with my feet on a couch every day so that I can just build strength into the body. And that's become significantly easier during the fast because I had a lot of energy and nothing to do with it. So the spiritual side of things, I would say those are kind of my foundational pieces. The last 2 months I've been reading the Bible, just a Proverbs a day. I'm not consistent with that yet, but it gives me a foundation to kind of say, here's a guideline, here are some bumpers, here's something to process throughout the day. And I found a lot of peace in that. So that's been nice to kind of come back home to. Yeah, I'd say that's it. Now, outside of that, my little bit more advances, being in the peptide space, I have my peptide protocol. So I have my AM and PM peptides. With some of the dosages, I'll split them 50-50 to an AM and PM. And so those are things that I have become very religious over the last 6 months that have helped my skin, just the way that I show up. If you look at photos of me on the internet, I had rings, I had lines, I had a lot of things. I saw somebody when I was in Austin, Texas at Dave Asprey's event just 3 weeks ago, and they're like, you look 10 to 15 years younger than when I saw you last year. And I was like, I'll take it. Thank you. Because one of their friends, this young lady was like, how old is that guy? He's fun. He's flirty. Is he my age? And she was 25. So I was like, let's go. I was like, I'm not in the space for anything like that, young lady, but it felt good to have her say I'm 25. Are you my age? And I was like, let's go. So, yeah.
Well, it's cool for you to unwind some of the things that got you to where you are today and allow people to get a snapshot of like your consistency and what you do, because I think that that's really important for people to get like the reality of who you are and how you get to where you are. And sometimes we ask people to share success stories that are like practitioners of people that they've helped get a better life through their protocols or whatnot. But your protocol is you. Like,
Yeah.
you are the protocol.
Yeah. So let's go back in my journey. A little over 3 years ago, I was 320 pounds. I was in a tough place. I was struggling. I weighed in at 201 pounds and 17% body fat a few days before the end of my fast. So in the last 1,000+ days, I've transitioned my life several times in several ways. And the whole thing is less is more. Like, clean shit up, let it go. Do not drag stuff from yesterday into today.
Yes.
I was actually offered a multiple 7-figure opportunity to run a tech firm in the blockchain space because of my ability to, in this guy's space, work with his team. Because I just went in there organically and was like, try this, look at this, etc. And I have Tony Robbins to thank for that. And meeting James is, I've been to 60 of his events, and 60 of his events, 150 other events, read around 1,000 books. I've built this guy. Like, I'm a homeschooled kid from Ohio. I should not be at Mar-a-Lago. I should not be invited by Trump to the White House. I should not be getting a microphone. I was just 3 weeks ago, I was at 3-4 weeks ago, I was at the Maha event in DC, and there's 250 people in the room. And I got an invite from some people that said, hey, come check this out. And I've been there several times now. And like, who I am is who I built. And so every single step of the way, it's observe something and be like, okay, that was not my desired outcome. So, and another thing, I need to thank my friend Kyle Zagroski, CEO and founder of OsteoStrong. He said to me recently, he's like, Tim, your Rolodex doesn't need to grow. It needs to get deeper. And I was like, but I like meeting people, right? So I'm in a little bit of resistance, but I was also like, there are some phenomenal humans. So I reached out to a few people and I asked them how they were and who they were and a little bit about themselves. And all of a sudden energy started to flow. And so it's the constant curiosity, and we should approach life and relationships like this. And this is a tip for both of you because you're married and you're in a relationship. I'm currently in neither. And so every 6 months, you want to go to your woman, you want to go to your life, and you want to observe it and say, how do I relearn who you are? Because if when you met your wife or you met your girlfriend, you bought her red roses, she goes, oh my God, babe, red roses. And every month you send her red roses. 6 months later, she's like, thanks for the flowers. Men get attached to the dopamine of the first hit. So we're like, we got roses, she's happy. What we didn't ask is, are those your favorite? And the answer is usually no. She might like tropical flowers. She might like yellow roses. She might like something a little different. And because we got a dopamine hit, we got addicted to the fact that that is right. That is truth. It's not that we're wrong. It's that we stopped learning and we fell into this comfort zone, this groove in life where we didn't bump out of the groove to hit the next line in the record, to hear the next music, to see what's around the corner. And all of a sudden, 2 years later, they're like, hey, I'm done. You're like, with what? Because we're blindsided because we don't know. So the thing that I've learned through the fast, through everything, and we could go into many pieces of this, are relearn who you are and approach life with curiosity as much and as frequently as possible so that you can evolve. Because one of my mentors says to me, the man's worth 19 billion. He's one of the only people to have acquired some companies from Warren Buffett and Berkshire at some point. They had like a big deal. And he shared with me, he goes, what are you going to do with the next 200 years of your life? Because he's like, you are one of the most lived human beings I've ever met. You approach things with such he has a word he uses, I'll remember it in a moment. It's like he just says you aren't afraid of anything. I'm like, I don't know to be afraid of anything. It's curiosity that is the driving force, the driving factor. So approach life, Christ consciousness is a new mind, and then curiosity is the tool. And when you do that and you get proximity, there is no limit. Like, not everything's perfect, but it's like, yeah.
I had a mentor, friend, coach, armchair psychologist, Alex Sharpin, good friend of mine. He told me to approach life with questioning and curiosity over conflict. And I think it's some of the wisest words. I mean, especially when we look at the way the world is these days, and we don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but I mean, there's so much conflict everywhere, and there's so much conflict, I mean, with families, within families that love each other. And I think if we could approach it, like you said, like going in with questioning, curiosity, like trying to understand, we're all just humans on a rock trying to figure it out, and I don't know, there's a lot of wisdom there. I love that, curiosity. I mean, it's just something that's been squelched, to a certain extent. Hey, and I love the idea of having to relearn my wife, or having her to relearn me. I mean, we've
yourself.
And us relearning ourselves. Yeah, you're totally right, because we change. And I think that it's easy to, again, have this belief system that that's just the way it is, and that's the way she is, or that's the way I am. And really, it's about growth. And every day, like you said, is a new day. Yesterday's done. There's no reason to worry about tomorrow. It'll have its own worries that we'll cross when we get there. And today's just an opportunity for growth and relationships, with ourselves, with others, with our businesses, with our network, and just, how much good can we put into the world? And I really appreciate your perspective of life. And I'm so blessed. I feel so blessed that James introduced us. So I'm so glad 100%. That we're together. I got a question for you. So, and I get the gist of this. I get the gist, but I want to hear, like, I'm going to try to get to somewhere with this. I want to know, and I get it, but I want to know again, because something's just not, I haven't quite, put the dot on the I yet, so to speak, or the cross the T. I want to know how your life changed from this fast. Your your emotional health, I think we've talked a lot about. Your physical health, you lost some weight, but like what's different? And then while you were going through the fast, and I think that a lot of our listeners are going to have this question, is that safe? Is that dangerous? So I guess the question is, was there a point during the fast where you did get worried about your health? I guess I'm speaking about physical health and internal chemistry and stuff like that. But was there a point where you're like, man, I don't know about this. I'm feeling X, Y, and Z. Or was it just like, it's an emotional struggle with the commitment, but man, physically, I'm feeling gangbusters every day. I want to hear the Timothy story of of how did your life change, and were you worried about that stuff?
So it got really wild around the 10-day mark because I went from sleep, like the first week, your body is letting go of parasites. You have them secreting in your system, acid, sugar, and you have this, people say I have a headache or I got hungry. True hunger in a human being's in the throat. And during this fast, I had the first experience of hunger because I started to Google, am I in medical trouble? Because I had this ache in my throat that felt
Mm.
like a pressure, and it felt like something was sitting in my throat misaligned, kind of like something out in chiropractic. And I was like, what is this? And for about 2 days, I had this thing. So I'm like, man, do I need to eat? What's going on? And after a couple of, Googles and GPTs and Claudes, it's like, you're experiencing hunger. Welcome to the party of, 0.001% of Americans will ever experience hunger, which means per million, it's like 18 people, 0.00018 or
Wow.
something. So 18 people per million will ever feel hunger in their throat. And I was like, that's dope, to have hit that statistic. And so I spent a lot of time with very dear men on the phone talking about some stuff and nothing, and they understood my position. And one of my very best friends, Lance Fortin, him and his wife have a clinic up in northern Michigan. She's a Harvard MD that's practiced regenerative medicine for a decade. Him and I probably put 40 hours on the phone. It would be a call in the morning, a call in the afternoon, and he was just there to be a brother and listen to whatever was going on in my head, which was chaotic because I was ungrounded, unfounded. I do not have a home. I live full time on the road. And so, living full time in the road, I live in that space, and it was very ungrounded. So, I just sat in either silence or I sat on the phone with a brother who brought me some balance because you don't have what you normally have, and living in the extreme of it, it was a very ungrounding experience. The next side of that would be,
Mm.
I went from sleeping the first 7 to 10 days, I was sleeping 8 or 10 hours to 3 hours a night. And so now I'm going to bed at 9 or 10 p.m., waking up before the day has finished at midnight. And I have 21 hours of keeping my brain and body and heart in alignment because I went through these heartbreaks and these moving pieces, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I started taking 4 and 5 hour bike rides. I would bike. I'm in a, um, West Palm Beach area. I'd bike up to Jupiter and back for 5 hours. I would go for a 3 or 4 or 5 hour walk. When I was in Austin, Texas during Dave Asprey's event, I was in a chaotic place of some uncertainty of some things. And I left the place at 3 a.m. and it cost me $55 for an Uber to go up by the lake. And I had walked for 7 hours. My phone died. So there was this burst of energy because I believe that by starting with 14 days of a parasite cleanse, I cleaned out a lot of
Mm.
stuff. And by day 7, I ended that. So my body was clean and clear. And I'd done fenbendazole, menbendazole, and some ivermectin the month before. So I was in a very clear place. I Sleeping 1 to 3 hours was crazy. Like when you have an 8 or 10 hour day and you get it done early, you're cool. But when you have a 20-hour day and you get it done before the sun rises, you're like, what do I do? So for me, that was a big mental experience because I'd have 5 hours of silence, 5 hours of undiscovered, undirected, moving parts sitting there, and I didn't know what to do with it. So it became a struggle of identifying in myself how to be in a peaceful state, how to be in something still, how to direct myself and focus on what I need to do. So I'd either be hyper focused getting shit done, or I'd be in a place of absolute chaos, not able to
Mm.
finish a thought. The nutritional side, this you asked, that side. The other side of it is, I never felt dangerous from the fast of 40 days. The pieces that I went into it considering were, Jesus did it. He didn't have technology, an Aura ring, 600 different devices, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Claude, GPT on demand, where he could ask it, am I okay? I wasn't here to be okay. I was here to suffer. I was here to go through it, get through my shit versus live in it. I truly believe that, action and energy is what I needed. So I approached it and did that. The piece that I would say was wild for me was everybody else's concern. And part of what I went to before I went into the fast was, I Googled in the world, there's something like 20 some tribes that eat like 15 times a year, where
Mm.
they'll go, we'll use the word bison. That's not right, but they'll go kill a bison and they'll eat it for 5 days, and then they'll gorge, and then they won't eat for a month. And if you go back in history, we didn't have this lifestyle. And if we go back to
Sure.
the foundation of carnivore, it's very interesting. I read a couple books a couple years ago, and the chief was in charge, but the head hunter, there's another word for it, the alpha male was the hunter who would kill the animal and eat the back fat. So the chief would be like, hey, political stuff, blah blah blah, but the hunter was actually the guy in charge. And so when I thought of it that way, I was like, I want to I'm committed to shifting who I am in my own world and the world that I play in. I'm going to move the energy in this space. And so my commitment was outside of myself, and I never really faced anything. Now the final piece of it is uh after like day 30 or so, I had bursts of energy that I had to figure out what to do with because my bike wasn't with me. I was in Ohio with my kids. I actually went running. I went running a couple times. I haven't run on purpose in 20 years for the fun of it, and I went running. I got as much as 30 some minutes of running, and it was a brand new experience for me. I had not physically done that in 20 years on purpose. And then the other piece of it was on day 39. I woke up at 4 something in the morning. Actually, I was awake, and my kids are asleep in the hotel. And I hop up. My buddy texts me like, "Yo, gym." I'm like, "Done." I went to the gym for 90 minutes. I did shoulders. I did chest. I'm sitting here lifting lighter weights, lots of reps. I didn't have the torque, so the torque was gone. Like I couldn't curl a 50 anymore. I could curl 20s, but I could do 100 reps because there was no inflammation, so there's no resistance. So I'm building muscle. Um, and then later that day, a girlfriend of mine was like, "Hey, I'm headed here," and then going to the gym. I was like, "Can I go to the gym?" She's like, "Didn't you say you went at 5 a.m.?" I was like, "I did." And she's like, "Okay." So I show up at the gym, and for 90 minutes, I did pull-ups and dips with assistance. And the next day, I was at like a 5%. It was like I knew I worked out for the first time in a while. I was not in pain. So there's miraculous, amazing things that the body accomplishes for autophagy, mitophagy, inflammation reduction, healing. And the other thing is since I didn't have food and I was doing copper peptide, my flexibility has gone up about 20%. The 20% increase is my rotation in my back, my ability, my shoulders. I can hang. I did a dead hang for 5 minutes, which is insane. Before that, I did it for like 45 seconds, a minute or two, but 5 minutes, and it was just shy of 6 minutes. And so the body does and moves needles that you didn't know were possible in the moment of putting yourself first. And what we think is a lack is actually like, this has been the biggest gift of my entire freaking life.
So,
I just
Jason,
I just want to say real quick 2 things. Number 1, when we were in Galway for the first time, I mean, a few years ago, a number of years ago, we saw that dead hang where they're out on the street and you pay like £1 or £5 or something to hang, and if you can hang for 5 minutes, you win an extraordinary amount of money, like $100,000 or something crazy, or 100,000 pounds or something nuts like that. And there's all these buff guys and all these like everybody's like, I can do that, it's whatever. No one can do that, right? I mean, it's like the thing, like no one can do that. I just want to travel around with you and just be, you can be my ringer, and we can just clean up in the Galway streets and the Dublin streets and whatnot. So the other thing you mentioned, copper peptides, and I had this question. So we did, again, water, salt, and lemon. Were you taking supplements as well? And also
Yes.
included in that was peptides. Yeah, tell me, what was your stack while you were on the fast? What were you doing?
So I was doing methylene blue every other day, not having. Oh, and here's another thing. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, so you're consuming a ton of salt and water, lemon and lime." I was like, no. I was at like 8 to 15 ounces a day of water, and a couple days I dry fasted simply because I wasn't parched. I believe that our water in our system, actually we'll go back to like 1910. They said we need 64 ounces of water, 8 glasses of 8 ounces. Well, they also decided to throw a little bit of something in the water to get us to adjust our body being, etc. So I don't believe in a ton of hydration. I believe in really clean water. I believe in structured water. And so my hydration was 1 glass or 2 glasses a day. I think I went 4 days dry fast during the fast. And I felt amazing. I was never parched. I was never dehydrated. I went every other day with the methylene blue because I saw how intense the color was, because I wasn't in a place of strong hydration. I had some basic vitamins. I had a couple methylated vitamins. I was taking NAC. I was on DIM because I was coming off of testosterone. I did do this at the beginning. I was doing about every hour or two, I would do a digestive enzyme, because what I theorize in myself is we don't process a lot of the food because most meat in America is slaughtered or butchered here, or slaughtered here, butchered overseas, and shipped back. So our meat is a healthy 5 months old by the time we get to eat it from a grocery store, if you don't have a local source at times. And so I believe that in our system, 30, 40 feet, whatever the math is on our intestines, et cetera, we have nutrients that are untapped. So I started taking, on my own theory, uh, about 10 digestive enzymes per day. So I believe that that's a strong part of how I made it through the fast with such ease, is the fact that I was processing food and nutrients still in the body that might have been just left to the wayside. Trying to think what else. I was on a peptide routine, so I was doing one 1.5 to 2 milligrams a day of copper for 30 days. I did BPC and TB. I did and these are not, I'm not a practitioner, so we're going to leave that out there for everybody to understand. I'm not a practitioner. I'm a biohacker. I'm a wellness guy. I'm my own doctor. I'm the guy learning about it, teaching myself these things. I've read 3 books on peptides this year, and I'm learning. So I'm in a learning curve. This isn't go do it and what's Tim do. This is, I had blood work and I had my genomics, and I was able to say, where are the gaps and what do I want to fill and what are my goals?
Awesome.
So, yeah. And then,
It's responsible.
Yeah. So that's a beautiful thing.
It's the same method that we take, when we bring on a new client, I do what's called a blueprint. And we run, people think they've got blood work done from their general practitioner, and they bring it in and it's like a CMP, a CBC,
four panels.
TSH. And they're like, but they know everything. And I'm like, they don't know shit. And I'll quote James about my practice. He's like, if you give him your shit, your piss, your what do you say? Your shit, your spit, your piss, your blood, and your poop. Bradley can put together your genomics and your profile and like tell you what your body is lacking, what it needs, and all that kind of stuff. And that's what we do. It's same approach. I love that. I have a question. BCP and TB. I know we have a whole show that we can do on peptides, so I don't want to get too deep in that. But I just want to know what you were doing. I get the copper, 1.5, 2 milligrams, copper, BCP plus TB. Were you doing like a meg on that, or what were you doing?
So my protocol, it shifts a lot. So during this period of time, I was doing Monday through Friday, 1 milligram of BPC, 157, and then TB 500. I was doing 2 to 2.5 milligrams twice a week on that. I was also using HCG for the first probably 20, 25 days of the fast, 2 to 3 times a week at 500 micrograms, because I was still in the process of titrating off and coming off of testosterone. I'm on retatrutide. I was using a very low dose of that, and so that's was part of my current stack. And then I think that was pretty much it.
And I know you didn't, and James, I'm going to pass it right over to you. And I know you didn't talk about it, and you're not, I want you to be more self-promoting, but I've been kind of scanning the Resolve Peptides, shop site, so to speak. And you guys have like what looks like the best quality peptides that are on the market, so we'll have you back on and chat more about that. But I also know that when this show airs, I just want to say for our listeners, when the show airs, Tim, you want to tell, we're going to have a special for our listeners, and it's going to be at the getbetterfasterpodcast.com. But do you want to speak about what you spoke about in the green room?
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, guys. So we'll do, anybody on here will have a coupon code through the link that'll be available, and it'll give you free BPC for 90 days. So we'll have a little bit of a parameter there, but I'm ready to give away 6 figures. It's one of the most foundational, most studied, most out there peptides. Everybody knows body healing or body protective compound. And for me, it's been amazing. My shoulder wasn't able to go up over my head. And if you're seeing the video, I'm able to do that. I wasn't able to do a pull-up for years. And after using BPC for about 60 days, I did my first pull-up. And to just have that youth in my body, it's been phenomenal. And I've explored more stacks. And we currently offer 67 peptides. We have a little over 20 on our website. Everybody asked the question, where's it from? How's it work? All API that I have found is from around the world. We do a heavy metals test. We do a certificate of analysis, and everything that I sell, I put in my body. So that is my standard. I know some other people don't operate by the standard and have different viewpoints. I'm not against anything. Do your research, ask your questions, ask me questions, beat me up, feel free. There's no, I'm not holding anything back. This is who I am and how I do it. So yeah, the peptide game for me is a lot of fun. It's shifted and changed my life, helped me with my sleep, helped me with my intimacy, helped me with my body composition. And I'm still at the beginning. Like some people are like, oh, you can do more. I'm like, I'm not about more. I'm about sustainability and longevity so that this body, this is the beginning of a journey. Like this is ground
Yes.
zero. This is actually day 2 or day 3, day 2, whatever, Monday, Tuesday. So this is day 2 of the rest of my life because 3 days ago on Father's Day, I had my first meal after 40. It was my 43rd day. And so being the beginning, that's every aspect of my life. I'm just a little kid exploring with curiosity and learning along the way from some of the greatest humans that I could put myself in proximity to.
That's awesome, man. It's totally generous. And I hope that our listeners just, like I said, go to getbetterfasterpodcast.com, go to the show page, this episode page, and we'll have all the links there for you. So James, I want to pass it right over to you. I know we're not quite short in the tooth yet, but we're getting a little, we're getting to the back end of our show. And I just want to make sure that James gets his questions answered.
Well, it's been really cool for me to just listen and to just be a part of the show today and to put great people together, because I know that Timothy has been on a journey and we've been knocking on each other's doors about getting a show together for him to be featured on either Cairo Hustle or over here. And I figured that this was the most timely effort for us to get him on, Get Better Faster. And I'm glad we could fast track it to make it a reality. As Dr. Jason said, we're in high demand right now. People are constantly messaging us about getting on the show, and it's kind of a cool thing to create something out of thin air and to make something special for the world to tap into, to have as a resource. And really, that's back to your own your statement is great value first.
Yeah.
And when you give something to people, they don't have to ask for it, and you'll get everything you want. And that's the lifestyle I've built is if you give everybody everything they've ever wanted, you'll never have to ask for anything. And I think that those are foundational things that people can learn from us and live by. And I think there's a lot of foundational things that we all shared today that people can listen to us and learn from us and live by. But one thing that they have to do is go do it themselves. And, at the outro, I always tell people nobody's coming to save you. You have to save yourself. And I guess my main question before we wrap things today is, what recommendation would you give to people how they can start fasting?
Well, you said something a second ago, so I'm going to tangent for a second, come right back to fasting. So you said foundational. So my role with OsteoStrong started way before it started in the business. It started because both of my grandmothers had osteoporosis, and you said foundation, that's the bones, that's who we are, and I haven't given time to that. So I want to really lay this piece out. The world is in an interesting place where we have Ozempic in the marketplace that's being potentially overprescribed in certain ways without activity and movement. And so bone density has been impacted. We have a species that held still for 1,000 days during COVID. We've never historically held still for 1,000 days. And we have the effects or side effects from the vaccine that were distributed globally. That trifecta is kind of like the suicide and the death and the coming off of testosterone, where it's this compound effect that's happening to our species. So OsteoStrong's been in business for over 15 years. We have 250 locations in 14 countries. Our centers increase bone, ligament, tendon, and muscle strength. Foundationally, that is something that people need to look into and dive into and participate with, because our species, like bone, is a measurement for fertility. Bone is a measurement for hormones. Bone is a measurement for stem cells. So when we put these things in play, we add them into peptides, add in some peptides, we're going to kind of split our species. We're going to have people that shop at the grocery store outside of the inner wall where everything's processed and full of colors and crap and chemicals. We're going to have people who eat organic and are on the outside. We're going to have people who go to the wellness longevity places, and we're going to have people that look at it like, I don't know if that's for me, or my doctor said. Well, if my doctor can't lead me to where he is and I don't want to be where he's going, that's not a doctor for me. And so we're in an interesting place as a species that we have to start to become our own doctor. We have to start to identify these things that are moving the needle to change the world. And I truly believe that OsteoStrong is going to be a big part of the future of humanity. We have 250 locations. We need 20,000 to combat what's coming.
I want to pass it back to you, but I want to make a few statements.
Yeah.
The number one doctor in the world is the one inside of you.
Yes.
But you have to wake it up and you have to ask it questions and be curious with it. If people go travel around the world, which I just got back from 60 days, 8 countries, um, 4 continents, over 20 flights, and my takeaway from it is if you want to understand humans, you have to go see them. You have to go see them in their native environments. You talked about these tribes that eat maybe 15 times a year. And really the big takeaway for me is if you want to see what humans can create, you have to determine what they listen to, where they go, how they behave daily, what they feed themselves through energy, what they feed themselves through food, what they feed themselves through connection. And then you can start to understand why some people get addiction. Then you can start to understand why some people are obese. Then you can
Yeah.
start to understand why some people are rotting from the inside out with osteoporosis. And if you want to really understand humanity, you have to go see humanity. But people always ask me, like, are you afraid to be away so long? Like, what are your fears? Like how people asked you, like, are you afraid of like this journey of 40 days? Well, people always ask me too, like, are you afraid that you're like, is it cost too much? Like, people ask me one of their favorite questions for me is, how much did it cost you?
Yeah.
I go, well, the big takeaway for people to understand here, Timothy and Jason, and all of our listeners is it'll cost you everything if you don't go experience life. It
Yes.
will cost you everything if you don't go take a chance on yourself. It will cost you your entire life if you don't go live it. And that's a big part of the takeaway for having three strong men on this show today is we can talk about life experience, we can talk about your journey, we can talk about biohacking, but really if you don't go live life, you don't have a life. And if you I said to a buddy of mine the other day that you can go work a job for 40 years and wake up one day and not have nothing to do and nobody wants you. And that's the real truth that most people live a life is they do it for security. They do it to pay the bills. They do it because it's the thing that people tell them that they have to do. But when they listen to this show today, they're going to wake up and they're going to wake up to ideas and new pathways for themselves that they didn't know existed before. And the reason that this show is working the way it is because Jason and I are extremely curious and we want to feature people that are curious also. So, I think that that's a big thing. And understanding that people are rotting from the inside and they're not living to their full potential will give you a snapshot of what you can do to make this life better for yourself. And I do appreciate you sharing with people about your journey and being so vulnerable today and sharing with people about what happens when we get lost. You know, I also believe, I've lost some family in the past handful of years. And when people have that loss, they want to live and ruminate in that reality and they don't know how to let it go and to be a better person for themselves. They think that their badge of honor is suffering and in this guilt or this grief state. Nobody that passes on wants you to live in that grief or guilt or that state. They want you to go live. Like, so anybody that like has had a loved one that's passed, do not allow that to be your destiny of this grief and guilt that you have to live in this shame pattern of this person that's no longer here. Like, go out there and buy the around the world ticket. Go out there and do a 40-day fast. Go out there and serve people with your time, talents, and treasures. Like, that's really the reality that we're sharing today is you get to make your own decisions. And whether you have $1 in your bank account or $1 trillion in your bank account, you can go out there and be a difference for yourself, and that makes you a difference for others. And if Tim and Jason and James aren't happy, ain't nobody happy. So we got to take good care of ourselves in order to be good leaders and to carry this message on to more people. And I thank you for making time for this, Timothy, and I thank you for making time for this, Dr. Jason.
Yeah. Thank you both. So the thing is, it's about 11% of the year to fast for 40 days. It is 1% of a decade to fast for 40 days. I find it as a responsibility for myself to include fasting in my life moving forward. When we look, people ask me like, oh, is it dangerous to take that much salt? Well, if we go back to the Bible, we were trading salt for
Mm.
gold back in the days. Salt is one of the most valuable things in the world historically. So to add salt into your diet and see the benefits, you have the minerals, and the minerals are your fascia, and the fascia is the way that you function, feel, move, breathe, etc. That is part of what I learned during this journey that changed my life forever. My starting point for fasting would be skip a meal. My next thing would be create a 6 or 8 hour meal window where you're going to eat from, let's say, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And after 6 p.m., you have water and salt. And after that, try a forward-thinking practitioner, ask them for some support. And if they don't support it, maybe find a new practitioner. Because for me, fasting, autophagy, mitophagy has shifted and changed my life so dynamically that I would not live without it. I'm going to show this photo, then pass it back over to Dr.
Yeah.
Jason. So 40 days ago, this is me 40 days. So
It's
the
amazing.
inflammation has left my face, my smile has expanded, my everything about me has changed. And that would be about 45 days ago. But I'm a new human being because I let go of what I thought I knew, thought I needed, and I started over.
I
Jason.
love that. And man, I mean, you're a handsome guy 45 days ago, but I mean, you do look younger. You look healthier. I mean, it's amazing. I was actually texting Dr. Rachel during the show, and I'm like, I want to do this. I got to commit to. I got to wrap my head around it. I got to get in the right mental space. I can see that, but I'm not going to put it off. I think it's so important. And you know, we talk about intermittent fasting and fasting periods with my clients, and I think there's some magic to what you're talking about. I also want to say that the longer I do my job in internal medicine, functional internal medicine, the more I'm convinced that we are salt and light batteries as far as the human system goes. I really mean that. Like, it's like you think about a battery of a car. What does it need? It needs water and some
Salt.
minerals. I mean, salt. You know, I mean, that's what drives it. You know, and we need solar. And I mean, if we have that, I mean, there's a reason that people can fast for as long as they do. But I mean, if they go like 3 days without water, they're screwed, So I mean, and maybe we don't need as much. I mean, and maybe there is some cajoling there with the powers that be saying that we need X number of ounces because maybe they added some stuff to it, like fluoride and lithium and things like that. But I do just want to say something that I think is a curiosity for people that are really worried about this. And I've been fascinated with fasting for a very long time. Do you guys know? I have a feeling that one of you two will know this. What the longest recorded human fast is? Do you guys know? Yes, Timothy, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's over a year. A gentleman was, I believe,
Almost.
500 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah, almost. It's almost a year. I'll correct it just a little bit. Yeah, Angus Barbieri. I don't know how to say his last name. A Scottish guy. This was back in the 60s, mid 60s. And long story short, yeah, he was morbidly obese. And he just quit eating. And it was recorded, I mean, like from day one until the day he broke his fast, which he broke it with a pear, eating a pear, which I think is very interesting. He went down from 456 pounds down to 180 pounds. All of his cardiometabolic issues, his cardiac conditions, his lipids, his sugars, everything completely cleared up. Very healthy guy. And for the remainder of his life, he basically ate, with sense, and would fast occasionally. And people said, well, how do you know like how much to eat and how much not to eat? He goes, I just step on the scale. And if I was 2 pounds, he wanted to be 180 pounds. So if I weighed 2 pounds lighter, I'd eat a little bit more. If I was 2 pounds heavier, I'd fast till I got back down to 180 pounds. And he just kind of used that as his metric. And the guy lived for a really long time, ended up living very healthily. This was first published, and it's been talked about a lot since, but first published in the Postgraduate Medical Journal in 1973, after they'd been following this guy for a while, because I think everybody at the time thought this guy's going to die, Right. But I mean, it was, maybe it was over a year. It was 382 days. So yeah, a little over a year. Yeah, I can do math. 382 days. And I think everyone thought this guy was going to keel over. And he did exactly, not with peptides, but he did exactly what you did. He did water. I think at some point he started giving himself black tea, black coffee as well. But those were his fluids. He did salt. He did vitamins and minerals. And he also did a little bit of nutritional yeast, which is basically B vitamins, and I mean, I don't know, there's something there. Now, we've never had a large in-factor study done of, let's take 20,000 people and have them fast for 382 days and see what happens. For obvious reasons. I mean, I think that you'd have compliance. I mean, this and that and the other thing. But I love this story. That story has always inspired me to use fasting with my clients, especially when they struggle with cardiometabolic syndromes, other metabolic, I don't want to say lesions, but metabolic hiccups. And then your story is just in my head right now. I'm like, I want to do this not only for health reasons, but I want to see what it's like on the other side. I want to go through it. I want to get there because I think that you've got a magic kindled in you that I want. I want a little bit of that action myself because I think I have a lot of stripping away to do still. And I just appreciate you. Timothy, go ahead.
So the two things that I'll add is I would love to see people going into fasting be consistent. So fast 24 hours a week for a couple weeks. Like my goal is pretty extreme, so I'll leave that off the table. No comparisons. I would say find yourself, stop eating Sunday and start eating Tuesday. Give yourself a 48-hour fast and do that for a little while. If you did just that for the year, you'd have fasted almost 50 days. That is an insane shift to your metabolic system. Your metabolic chaos comes into alignment. You're taking out inflammation. You're reducing, you're increasing autophagy and mitophagy, where your cells are eating the zombie cells and taking them out of your body. And the next thing is this isn't a comparison. So if you've never fasted, you don't have to jump into 40 days. You have to jump into what fits for you. And being your own doctor, you're able to say, okay, I'm at a place. The two toughest days of my entire fast were day 39 and 40 because I got agitated knowing that the end was near. And that's why I went to day 41 and 42 and ate on day 43, was because I was making sure that my body and the old me that was dying died, and it wasn't going to take over again. So thank you both so much, Dr. Jason, James. This has been absolutely phenomenal.
Well, you can tell we both really love what we do, and having guests like you make the podcast work the way it does. So I just want to acknowledge you for sharing and giving insight on your life. And Dr. Jason is somebody that I really admire and respect. That's why I asked him to ride this out with me and to do this show. So it's really encouraging for me to see him excited about this project that we're both doing, and being able to, through osmosis, we get to talk to the greatest minds in the world. And I always tell people you can't put your hand into a jar of honey without getting some of it on you. So that's like our guests. That's like our guests. We can't have you onto our show and not get a little bit of your touch to us. So I just want to thank you for giving us the touch of what you've just gone through and where you're going. But I'm gonna close out if you guys are okay with that.
Yeah, I just want to quickly say thanks for coming on. It's a fantastic interview. We'll have you back on for part 2 because I have about 312 questions about peptides. No, I have 157 questions about peptides. There we go.
Let's go.
A little inside joke. But anyway.
But Timothy, this has been absolutely illuminating. I think a lot of people that will listen to this are going to have question after question after question, not just for us, but for themselves. And to our listeners, here's what we want you to take away. Timothy just showed you that transformation doesn't come from adding more. I want people to understand this. You don't have to add more to get healthy. You don't have to ask people for advice. You just have to go do it. And it usually comes from stripping things away. Go ahead, Timothy.
One thing is, one of the only Bible verses removed from the Bible is prayer and fasting will let go of the demons. And if you go through and you Google it and you look it up, you'll see that there's a verse that's removed that talks about fasting. And it blew me away when I found that as a fact, because I went into a Barnes and Noble and I was flipping through some Bibles and I forget the verse. Maybe Dr. Jason might be on the Google right now finding it for us, but it's like, it was removed. Like it's verse 12 and 14 or something. 13 was gone. And I just sat there and I was like, they have taken away the superpower of what is within us and replaced it with what is provided. And pharmakia, the whole experience is a lie. And the truth is literally, Dr. Jason, give it to us. What do we got?
I got Matthew 17:21 and Mark 9:29, basically referring to, the demons. This kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting, Matthew 17:21. And then Jesus said to them, this kind can only come out by nothing but prayer and fasting, Mark 9:29. So Yeah, we now we've opened up a can of worms, but we cannot go down the pharmakia and the what I'll call, I mean, I will openly call and have called many times the cult that is conventional medicine, big pharma. I mean, it's a cult for sure. But anyway, we'll come back to that. That'll be part 2 maybe, or maybe part 3. We'll see what happens. So,
we'll get a trilogy going. Yeah,
we'll get it, man. That's good. That's good.
So 40 days without food, leaning into prayer, meditation, breath work, stillness, and coming out with a clearer mind and a stronger spirit. If his story moved you, the next step is to make yours and to take what he said and to create your story. Whether it's exploring the biohacking technology Timothy works with at OsteoStrong, or simply committing to one practice of discipline in your own life this week, the door is open. Whether he said start intermittent fasting, give yourself a 48-hour, and leaning into what makes sense to you at this moment. Reach out to Timothy directly through his social channels to learn more. Remember, nobody is coming to save you, but stories like Timothy's prove you can save yourself. Timothy, thank you again. And to all of our GBF Nation, thank you for listening and for your continued support. The best way to show your support is get your phone out right now and hit click and share this episode, because I know somebody needs to hear this. People that are stuck in their own way, people that are resistant, people that allow the grocery stores and fast food chains to rule their world. And that is the truth. So share this episode with somebody who needs to hear this. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode and get all the behind the scenes insights we've got coming your way. We drop content all the time, guys. So go to our socials, go, join us at our Instagram channel. We're dropping stuff there constantly. Get Better Faster podcast. And go check us out on Apple iTunes and all the streaming platforms. Like Jason said, we're number 135 out of, I think there's 3,300,000 podcasts globally. So we're in the ranks, and that's a pretty cool thing that we've done in 6 months. And we get asked all the time how to work with Dr. J and his incredible functional medicine team at Thyroid Authority. Just click the link at getbetterfasterpodcast.com and we'll get you guys connected. And like I always say at the end, we've got more incredible guests lined up who are going to blow your mind with real solutions for reclaiming your health, your happiness, and your life. Until next time, keep questioning everything and keep getting better faster. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye for now. Until the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to the Get Better Faster podcast. Join the movement and visit getbetterfasterpodcast.com to find all our episodes, micro content, and resources to help you and your family get better faster.